Lee Haney, underrated, 8 Mr. Olympia titles, 8, the same number as Ronnie Coleman. Why does almost no one talk about him or follow him as much? Today we'll look at one of the most important men in bodybuilding. He perfected the combination of size, symmetry, and aesthetics. A blend of classic bodybuilding and the more extreme styles that followed. This is the story of Lee Haney. He was born in 1959 in South Carolina. From a young age, he stood out not only for his physique, but also for his mindset. While others sought to train more, he sought to train better. His philosophy was clear: stimulate, not annihilate. Something that contrasted with the harsh methods dominating bodybuilding in the 1980s. At 19 years old, he was already competing and winning youth titles, and it wouldn't be long before he became a professional bodybuilder. Let's talk about his rise to the Olympia. In 1983, he won the NPC Nationals. He entered the elite. Just a year later, in 1984, came Mr. Olympia. This is where something crucial happened. The long reign of Arnold Schwarzenegger was already history. Frank Zane, Franco Columbu, Chris Dickerson, Samir Bannout. They won Mr. Olympia, but kept the title briefly. And then Lee Haney appeared, bigger, more complete, more balanced. And he didn't stop. And here comes his absolute dominance for 8 consecutive years.
And in 1987, the Mr. Olympia title in Gothenburg goes to Lee Haney? Yes!
Yes, 1984, 85, 86, one after another. 8 consecutive Mr. Olympia titles. The same as Coleman, more than Phil Heath, more than Arnold. No one could compete with his balance. At the time, he didn't have a clear weak point. Back then, legs, especially the hamstrings, weren't that important, and they posed them differently. The torso was the most valued part. Round shoulders. Huge back, wide and dense. Narrow waist. While others grew by sacrificing aesthetics, Lee Haney maintained his proportions, and he dominated without question. Before Lee Haney, we had bodybuilders like Samir Bannout, Chris Dickerson, Franco Columbu, Frank Zane, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, more classic open bodybuilders. Lee Haney was like a bridge between that and the more monstrous ones that would come later. He was a turning point, a hybrid. Then Dorian, Yates, and Coleman would arrive, changing everything. This bodybuilder believed they could be bigger without losing aesthetics, and that's what he did. He was 1.80 meters tall, between 110 and 118 kilos on stage at his peak.
With a weight of 243.25 pounds.
Which today would be a weight halfway between the best classic physiques in the world and the top Open Olympia competitors. He had a waist of 80 centimeters. With a chest of 142, which gave him a very distinctive V-shape. His arms measured 53 centimeters and his legs 76, his calves 51. A broad back with good insertions and spectacular genetics, quite dense. He had a slim waist and a good shape, with more muscle volume than his predecessors. He also had an excellent chest, very ripped and defined. I think Lee Haney elevated the importance of having a great back as one of the greatest weapons in bodybuilding. After him, the goal was no longer balance, it was impact. More about extreme definition. Bodybuilding changed forever after him. His definition was not the most extreme in bodybuilding, but it was superior to that of previous bodybuilders, although it would be inferior to that of Dorian Yates, who would come later. Overall, Lee Haney had a very complete package. How did he train?
I started to stimulate, not to annihilate.
I believed you should stimulate, not destroy. And the secret to success was to work hard, but with a definite, very clear purpose. His routine consisted of 3 days of training and 1 day of rest. Those 3 days would change again in the next cycle. On day 1, he did chest and arms. On day 2, he did legs. On day 3, he did back and shoulders. He trained abs every day, and calves every day. Something unthinkable in modern bodybuilding, where those muscle groups don't really stand out. He trained with a moderate to high volume. He alternated a heavier training cycle with shorter sets and one with higher reps. He prioritized compound exercises followed by more isolation exercises. His diet was pretty clean. He ate lean meat, fish, lots of eggs, oats, sweet potato, and plenty of vegetables.
You can't train hard and eat poorly.
And now we're going to talk about something very interesting, which is that he retired in 1991 at the top, undefeated, something unusual in bodybuilding, where most people don't know when to stop. He wanted to surpass Arnold Schwarzenegger's 7 Mr. Olympias. He did it. He retired, as he said, to focus on his family and his businesses. I think it's a master move, first because he left with that image of a champion. Not as a diminished version of himself, nor in decline, nor defeated. And second, because that was the best thing for his health, especially for his family and his businesses. He made a smart but difficult decision, one whose wisdom very few recognized.
This guy plans to break my record, with Lee Haney set to surpass Schwarzenegger's record and more. And after he did it and won the Mr. Olympia title, I felt great. I can honestly say that because no one deserves it more than Lee.
At this point, I think it's inevitable to ask the question, if Dorian Yates came after and won 6 Mr. Olympias? If Lee hadn't stopped competing, would Dorian Yates have still won the 1992 Mr. Olympia? Or could Lee have pushed himself to win 9 Mr. Olympias, becoming the greatest in history in terms of titles? When Lee beat Dorian in 1991, Dorian was just getting started. He hadn't come into his own yet. In 1992, when he won the Mr. Olympia, he wasn't the same man as in 1991. He was someone completely different. I think Lee could have given him a tough fight, but Dorian Yates was inevitable, and his era would have come even if Lee Haney hadn't retired. Having seen his story and his incredible physique, why doesn't he have the same fame or following as Coleman, not even as Arnold or Phil Heath or Dorian Yates? Perhaps he hasn't been as prominent in the media as it appears. He didn't shout, put on a show, train obsessively, or stir controversy. He simply did what he had to do. But I think he deserves much more fame than he has. He is currently 66 years old, and as many of you know, he is waiting for a kidney transplant as soon as possible. He maintains a healthy and active lifestyle, attends bodybuilding events, gives out awards, talks to people, gives lectures, and also has his own event. And this is the story of Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia, one of the greatest bodybuilders in history, but unknown to many and, in my opinion, underrated. If you liked the video, please support it and check out the other episodes in this series. I'll link them at the end and in the description. That's all, Aries YT Bodybuilding signing off. See you next video.